Real quick before the video, if you want a chill way to relive the Zelda games, check out my new channel, Zeldudes, where I'm let's playing each game in timeline order. Zelda games are known for their soundtracks. Even if you've never played a single game in this series, you've definitely heard some of its music. And it's obvious why. Not only are these songs linked with our memories of playing these games, they're just genuinely fantastic pieces of music. So today, let's run through the Zelda series and try and pick out each game's most iconic song, the theme which has had the largest impact and is known by the most people outside of the game itself. I'll try and keep this list as objective as I can, but it will unavoidably have some personal bias. If you disagree with any, let me know. I'd love to hear your take. The Zelda games often reuse and remix songs from earlier entries in the series, like how different versions of the Fairy Fountain theme serve as most of the game's save select music. So for this list, I'll try and only pick songs that were introduced by each particular game, and exclude newer versions of older tracks. Let's start back in 1986, with the original Legend of Zelda. The Legend of Zelda on the NES was of course the first game to feature Link, Zelda, Ganon, Hyrule and the Triforce. And despite the restrictive hardware, composer Koji Kondo was able to cook up a small selection of timeless songs, none of them more iconic than the Overworld theme. Kondo has said that he would listen to his own melodies on loop over and over and over again, with the goal of writing music that players could hear for hours without getting bored. And nowhere is this more perfectly showcased than Zelda 1's Overworld theme. Which is impossibly catchy, charming, yet motivating, a marching beat driving Link ever onwards. Like the game itself, Zelda 2's soundtrack is a bit different, a bit stranger than that of its predecessor. While its themes are good, they never really caught on like those of other early Zelda games. Songs like Adventure of Link's Village, or Battle theme, or even its Overworld theme, have never really been heard since. However, the game's Palace theme is absolutely outstanding, and has gone on to become one of the most recognisable themes in gaming. Granted, it does owe a lot of its fame to the Super Smash Bros. Series, but still, it's upbeat, it's mysterious, and it's epic. The perfect score for fighting through the game's tedious temples. A Link to the Past is an incredibly difficult pick. Like the original, it introduced many of the series' iconic recurring themes, but this time, even more of them. Link's SNES adventure was the first time we heard the theme of the Dark World, Kakariko Village, Hyrule Castle, the Fairy Fountain, and Ganon's theme, firmly establishing A Link to the Past as the Zelda game with the most definitive soundtrack. But out of all of this title's many themes, the most iconic has to be Princess Zelda's. Of course, this track was given a much larger importance in Ocarina of Time, as Zelda's lullaby, and it's been known by that name ever since. It suits Hyrule's princess perfectly. The theme is gentle and calming, beautiful and regal, and, of course, incredibly memorable. Since A Link to the Past, it has appeared in nearly every game in the series, played in many different styles and on different instruments, but always retaining that magic of the original version. It really is difficult to pick just one track out of A Link to the Past's library, but I don't think any are quite as iconic as Zelda's theme. Link's Awakening sees our beloved hero shipwrecked on the mysterious Koholint Island, where he's told that in order to leave, he must wake the windfish. He does this by collecting the 8 instruments of the sirens from the game's dungeons, which eventually wake the deity with the Ballad of the Windfish. This song is, in effect, this game's main theme. Not only does it have major importance in the plot, it's also sung by Marin throughout the adventure. Like the game itself, it's melancholic and haunting, and is by far the game's most iconic piece of music. Like A Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time also poses the problem of having a gigantic library of truly iconic themes. Hyrule Field, the Song of Time, Kokiri Forest, Gerudo Valley, the Song of Storms, Epona's Song, and the title theme. Almost every piece of music from this titan of a game has become widely recognisable. However, if we're looking for the single most iconic theme from the game, then I'd have to give it to Saria's song, the theme of the Lost Woods. It's incredibly simple and mind-numbingly repetitive, but somehow never gets old. It's addictive, just ask Darunia. The Lost Woods might be the most well-known Zelda song outside of the series' main theme, for good reason. Majora's Mask is weird and sad. Termina is broken, each race suffering from their own problems until Link soothes their wounds. He does this with the Song of Healing, taught to him by the happy mask salesman, a song which can heal evil magic and troubled spirits, turning them into masks. It's the most important song in the game, and by far the most famous. A melancholic melody perfect for Link's strangest adventure. The two Oracle games each boast their own unique soundtrack, which, while meeting the high standards you expect for Zelda games, haven't become as widely known as other games in the series, making it difficult to pick their most iconic themes. The closest I could suggest would be the themes of the Oracles themselves, Dancing with Din in Oracle of Seasons, and Nehru's song from Oracle of Ages. Four Swords doesn't have a particularly extensive soundtrack, being a relatively short multiplayer Zelda on the Game Boy Advance. It was the first appearance of Vati, however, and was the first time we heard his theme music. Which would go on to be heavily used in the Minish cap. The Wind Waker is the brightest and most stylized of all of the Zelda games, and its soundtrack follows suit, with absolute belters like Outset Island, The Great Sea, and Mulgara. However, in terms of sheer status, none of the Wind Waker's many great songs can match the renown of the theme of the Rito's home, Dragon Roost Island. It's one of the best pieces of video game music in general, made even more iconic by its reuse in Breath of the Wild as the theme of Rito Village, and in Tears of the Kingdom as the crescendo of the Kolgara boss theme. While the Minish Cap wasn't the first game to feature Vati, it was the first and only to feature the Picori themselves, the magical race to which the Wind Mage once belonged. The theme of the Minish appears in multiple different songs, like the slow, mysterious opening legend, but most memorably as the Minish Village theme. Upbeat, cozy piece perfect for the Picori's home. Four Swords Adventure's soundtrack is mainly based on themes from A Link to the Past. None of its unique themes are particularly iconic, but I'd say Lake Hylia is its best original track. Midna was the princess of the Twilight, until the throne was usurped by Zant. He cursed her, trapping her in an impish form, which is how she meets Link, and together the pair work to stop the Twilight invasion. She's the best character in the game, and one of the best companions in any game, and her theme music is no different. But even more iconic is the song for when she is injured by Zant. While she clings to life by a thread, Link rushes her to Hyrule Castle and to Princess Zelda, all the while hearing the somber, mournful Midna's lament. This is probably the most famous original track in Twilight Princess, and it's probably the best too. Linebeck is Phantom Hourglass's best character, a treasure seeker who begrudgingly agrees to take Link on his adventure. His theme is easily the game's most memorable piece of music, and is heard often throughout it. Including a sinister version when Linebeck is possessed. While Phantom Hourglass's overworld theme feels like the weaker cousin of the Wind Waker's, Spirit Tracks gives us something completely new. It's one of the best songs in the entire series. In-game, the music keeps time with the chugging, making driving a train seem like the coolest thing Link's ever done. Skyward Sword has a gorgeous orchestral soundtrack, crowned by its absolute banger of a main theme, the Ballad of the Goddess. It's a masterpiece that completely captures the game's narrative scale, made even better by the fact that the main melody is actually Zelda's lullaby in reverse. I remember this being absolutely massive when it was first noticed. Hiding a secret like this in plain sight is brilliant, given Skyward Sword's story features the very first Zelda. A Link Between Worlds naturally reuses and remixes the soundtrack of the game it was based on, A Link to the Past. It does have a brilliant score, with many of its versions of classic songs being, for now, the definitive versions of them. The game features the parallel kingdom of Lorule, and its overworld theme of course reuses the Dark World from A Link to the Past. Lorule Castle, the game's final dungeon, reverses the Hyrule Castle theme, however. And gets increasingly more grand and energetic the higher Link climbs. Although it technically is a reused theme, like the Ballad of the Goddess, it stands out enough as its own piece, and is by far the best song in the game. Triforce Heroes is another game where it's somewhat difficult to pick out an original, iconic track. This game's soundtrack is far better than it has any right to be, but none of its songs have ever really gathered mainstream appeal. That said, the theme for the woodland area is probably the most famous, and is ridiculously catchy. Breath of the Wild opted for an ambient, broken sound. Link's adventure is scored by scattered piano notes, rather than the bombastic melodies of the earlier games. This doesn't mean the game doesn't feature classically epic Zelda music though. The game's Hyrule Castle theme, the songs of the champions, and the game's beautiful main theme itself are all iconic. But I think the game has one song in particular that is instantly recognisable to anyone who has played it, and many who haven't. Cass can be found all across the wilderness, singing songs about Hyrule's landmarks, always playing the same tune on his concertina. His music breaks up the sound of the wilderness, signalling that a quest and a friend is close by. Cass himself is such a charming character, and I find myself humming his theme song without thinking all the time. It makes me nostalgic for a game not even 7 years old, and it stands out as a classic Zelda tune in a game that largely goes without them. Tears of the Kingdom massively expanded on Breath of the Wild's existing soundtrack, adding a huge amount of gorgeous new themes. It might be recency bias talking here, but the soundtrack of Tears of the Kingdom might just be the best in the series. Every track is so masterfully orchestrated, perfectly finding the balance between ambient sounds for exploration and explosive scores for the game's most important moments. Particular highlights of this soundtrack for me are the Hyrule Castle's Sky theme, all of the temple music, the ambient sounds of the sky, and of the depths, the skydiving music, and the game's outstanding finale with the Demon Dragon battle. But for the single most iconic piece of music from Tears of the Kingdom, I'll have to go with the boring option, the game's main theme, which could well be the greatest main theme we've gotten so far. It completely captures the feeling of the game itself. It begins with a strange, chanting melody, evoking the mysteries of the Zonai and of Ganondorf's seal, then settles into a whimsical, fun tune on the Uru, the instrument used in Breath of the Wild's main theme. The music builds and builds until, like the game itself, it reaches an epic finale. Massive strings belting out the game's main melody, a monstrously powerful theme to represent Link's courage. It's memorable, it's majestic, and it's incredibly inspiring, and it's easily one of the greatest things about this game. So there's my pick for every Zelda game's most iconic theme. As I said at the beginning, I tried to keep this list as objective as possible, but my own opinions will have definitely skewed my choices. So let me know if you agree with my picks in the comments. Are there any iconic Zelda themes I missed or should have chosen instead? Let me know. And again, head over to Zeldudes to join me and Zelda Master in replaying every game in this series, pointing out cool details, discussing our thoughts and experiences with the games. Cheers guys, and I'll see you next time.